My uncle framed me with drugs, slept with my wife, stole my son. Now he's facing prison. You know those stories you hear where people say their whole life changed in a single moment? Like 1 second you're living your normal routine, and the next, everything you knew is ashes. That was me. 2 years ago, on a Tuesday night I'll never forget, my entire world burned down. It started like any other late shift day. I'd just gotten off work, exhausted, dirty, craving nothing but a shower, and seeing my son Tyler before bedtime. Emily had texted me earlier to say Tyler fell asleep early, but she'd wait up for me. I pulled into the driveway of our little house in suburban Dallas, completely unaware that within minutes, I'd be face down on my living room floor in handcuffs. I unlocked the front door and immediately saw the flashing lights behind me. Red and blue strobes lit up the entire street. Before I could even register what was happening, I heard shouting, "Get on the ground. Hands up." Now, dozens of officers flooded my home like a damn SWAT movie. My neighbors stood on their lawns, watching like they were seeing some cartel takedown. I dropped instantly, face to the carpet, hands behind my head as multiple boots pinned me down. Tyler's toy truck was inches from my face. All I could think was, this is a nightmare. Emily was screaming in the corner, holding Tyler, both of them crying as officers dragged me up and slapped cuffs on my wrists. They didn't waste time. Before we go further, don't forget to like this story, hit subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss what happens next. Minutes later, one of them emerged from the basement access hatch with a black duffel bag. Inside? Pills, baggies, and enough cash to bury me. I kept shouting, "That's not mine. I don't know where that came from." But none of it mattered. To them, the drugs were in my house. Case closed. They read me my rights, shoved me into the back of a squad car, and drove off while my wife and son watched helplessly. That was the last time I saw my house as a free man for 2 years. What made it all worse? I had no clue how those drugs got there. Until I started thinking about my uncle. Ricky. A few months before my arrest, Ricky had shown up at our doorstep. Broke. Homeless. Playing the poor pitiful family card. "I just need a place to crash for a bit, man," he said. "Just until I get back on my feet." Emily wasn't thrilled, but we didn't have the heart to say no. He stayed in our guest room, rent-free. Helped around the house, played with Tyler, even cooked dinner some nights. At first, I was grateful. I thought family meant something. Turns out, Ricky's idea of family meant something very different. Over the months, I noticed little things. Emily started spending more time with Ricky. They watched TV together while I worked late shifts. Inside jokes. Quick glances when I walked into the room. But I told myself I was being paranoid. I mean, this was my uncle. My own blood. After my arrest, everything moved fast. They denied me bail. Threw me a public defender who said, "Honestly, you should probably take a plea deal." I refused. I wasn't pleading guilty to something I didn't do. So I sat in jail, awaiting trial, watching my life disintegrate one piece at a time. Emily visited at first. She brought Tyler once or twice, tears streaming down her face as she promised to hold on. "Stay strong," she said. "I believe you," she whispered. "We'll get through this." I clung to those words like a drowning man gripping driftwood. But over time, the visits stopped. The calls went unanswered. Eventually, she blocked my prison line completely. For 2 years, I sat in that cell while my world continued without me. And then, one day, everything changed. The day I was released wasn't the triumphant moment you see in movies. No crowds, no hugs, no one waiting outside the gate. Just me, standing alone in worn-out prison-issued clothes, clutching a plastic bag holding my few personal items. Freedom, but nothing to return to. 2 years after my arrest, everything flipped because of something completely out of my control. Turns out, the Dallas County Sheriff's Office was under heavy investigation. A string of wrongful arrests, illegal searches, missing warrants, all tied to the same department that had raided my home. My attorney, my new attorney, the one who actually gave a damn, had filed for my conviction to be reviewed months earlier. And now, finally, someone listened. My charges were vacated. The court acknowledged procedural violations without officially admitting full guilt on their part. The kind of legal language that lets the system cover its ass. But I was free. On paper. In reality, I had nothing. No job, no house, no wife, barely any contact with my son. The only person who offered me a place to stay was my cousin Mike, the one family member who still believed in me from the start. He picked me up that morning, and I barely held it together during that car ride. "You did nothing wrong," Mike said softly. "They stole your life, but you got out. That's what matters now." I nodded, but inside, I was boiling. Because as grateful as I was to be free, I couldn't shake one thing. Ricky. Mike didn't waste any time. The night I moved into his place, he sat me down and said, "There's stuff you need to know. Stuff I didn't want to tell you while you were inside." He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo, and my heart shattered all over again. There was my son Tyler standing in front of my house, on the porch, smiling, next to Uncle Ricky. I couldn't breathe. Is that? Yeah, Mike said. They're living there. Together. I stared at the screen, feeling my blood turn cold. My house. My family. My life, completely hijacked. Mike explained how Ricky had moved in permanently after I went away. He and Emily were now openly together, raising Tyler like some happy little family unit. The neighbors whispered, but most acted like it was a tragic love story. Poor Emily, abandoned by her criminal husband, finding comfort in her husband's own uncle. The audacity. I couldn't sleep for days. I kept asking myself the same torturous questions. Was Emily part of it from the start? Did she know Ricky set me up? Or did she just crumble under pressure after I was gone? Either way, the betrayal was complete. I spent weeks watching from a distance, sitting parked down the street, staring at my house. Tyler riding his bike in the driveway. Ricky mowing the lawn like the man of the house. Emily bringing groceries in with a smile, acting like nothing happened. The hardest part? My son didn't recognize me anymore. I was ready to explode, but Mike kept pulling me back. Be smart, he said. Don't give them what they want. Get evidence. Build your case. And he was right. If I charged in with nothing but rage, I'd be the one in cuffs again. Then, out of nowhere, a break landed in my lap. One night, I got a message through Facebook. Random. From a name I barely recognized. Jason Miller. He used to live down the street, a teenager back then. Sometimes came around during block parties, played ball with the neighborhood kids. The message read, I need to tell you something. I didn't know how to say it before. Call me. We met that same night. Jason looked nervous, glancing around constantly. I felt sick about this for years, he started. I should have spoken up sooner, but I didn't want to get involved back then. I was on probation. I was scared. I leaned forward. What did you see? Jason took a shaky breath. I saw your uncle sneaking into the crawl space under your house. Few nights before the raid. Late. He had a duffel bag. Kept looking around like he didn't want to be seen. I didn't say anything because, well, I was scared of the cops, especially those cops. My chest tightened. Jason was describing exactly how that bag of drugs ended up inside my house. Exactly how Ricky framed me. And now? I finally had a witness. Jason agreed to sign a sworn statement. My attorney recorded everything. For the first time since that nightmare began. I had real evidence. The walls were starting to close in. But the fight? The fight was just getting started. Once Jason's sworn statement was in my attorney's hands, things started to move fast. For the first time, it wasn't just my word against everyone else's. Now we had something that could not be ignored. My lawyer, her name's Sarah, was as tough as they come. When she read Jason's statement, she leaned back, crossed her arms and said, this changes everything. She wasted no time filing a civil suit against the Dallas County Sheriff's Office for wrongful conviction, malicious prosecution, and emotional damages. And because of Jason's testimony, she also opened the door to start building a criminal case against Ricky. But Sarah didn't stop there. She ran a full background check on Ricky, something I regret not doing years ago. And what came back made my blood boil. 2 sealed charges from years earlier, one for drug possession in Louisiana back in 2003, another for obstruction of justice in Oklahoma. Neither ever appeared in the basic checks when he first came to live with us. He kept that history buried deep. But now, his old skeletons were on full display. Sarah filed motions to access the original police reports from my arrest. And guess what we found? Ricky had given a voluntary statement to the police back then, throwing me under the bus. He told them I was acting erratic, hanging out with suspicious new friends, and claimed he was worried for the safety of Emily and Tyler. That gave the police the probable cause they needed to storm my house in the first place. He wasn't just planning drugs, he helped build the whole damn case against me. Meanwhile, the pressure on the sheriff's office was starting to mount. The media caught wind of my lawsuit. Reporters started calling. My case became one of several being reviewed in a growing scandal involving the department's illegal search tactics. They offered me a quick settlement, low 6 figures, no admission of wrongdoing, just enough to make me go away. I told Sarah, hell no. This wasn't just about money. This was about clearing my name, about exposing every last one of them, about making sure nobody else went through what I did. But while the department scrambled to cover itself, the real war was just starting inside my own family. Emily finally reached out. 2 years of silence. Then, suddenly, missed calls, voicemails, text messages. The woman who couldn't be bothered to visit me in prison was now desperate to talk. At first, I ignored her. But she didn't give up. Eventually, she showed up at Mike's house, standing on the porch, looking like hell, thin, pale, nervous. I stepped outside but didn't invite her in. I didn't know everything, okay? She started, voice shaking. I swear, I didn't. I stared at her. But you knew enough, didn't you? She swallowed hard. I didn't know he planted anything, she whispered. I thought maybe you were into something. The way it all looked. Ricky made me feel like I needed to protect Tyler. He said you got mixed up with bad people. I clenched my jaw. So you moved him into my house? Let my son call him dad? Her eyes filled with tears. I was scared. I didn't know what to believe. Then it just went too far. I didn't buy a word of it. She wasn't some helpless victim. She chose to let Ricky step into my place while I rotted behind bars. She stopped answering my calls. She blocked my letters. She let my son forget who I was. And now that the truth was coming out, she was trying to play innocent. You only reached out because you're scared, I said coldly. Because now, you might go down with him. Her face twisted. Please, I didn't want this to happen. I never meant for. I cut her off. You let it happen. I walked back inside. Left her standing on the porch crying. The next day, Sarah called with even bigger news. The DA's office was officially reopening my case, not just for review, but for criminal charges against Ricky. Multiple felonies, drug possession with intent to distribute, perjury, obstruction of justice, and possibly conspiracy. The dominoes were falling. And for the first time since I was thrown into that squad car, I could finally see justice starting to crawl my way. But this storm was just getting started. Because Ricky? He wasn't going down without a fight. By the time the DA's office officially opened a criminal case against Ricky, the air around me felt charged. Like a storm that had been building for 2 years was finally cracking open. But even with everything finally shifting in my favor, I wasn't celebrating yet. Ricky was a snake. And snakes don't go down easy. Sarah warned me up front. Don't expect him to roll over, she said. He'll fight. He'll lie. And he'll throw anyone under the bus to save himself. She was absolutely right. First came the legal maneuvers. Ricky's lawyer tried to paint the whole thing as a tragic misunderstanding. He claimed Ricky never planted drugs, never manipulated Emily, never lied to police. They even argued Jason's testimony was unreliable because of his prior probation. Typical defense spin, attack the witness instead of the crime. But none of it was sticking. The real game changer came when forensic analysts finally ran DNA testing on the duffel bag, the one that had sent me to prison in the first place. And guess whose DNA showed up on the zipper and inside the bag? Ricky's. Sarah called me that afternoon, barely hiding her satisfaction. That's your smoking gun, she said. His fingerprints were circumstantial. But DNA? That's ironclad. The DA offered Ricky a deal, reduced charges in exchange for full cooperation. At first, he refused. But once the prosecution started digging into his prior sealed convictions, Ricky realized how bad things really were. His lawyer couldn't protect him from federal charges if this kept escalating. That's when the phone rang again. Sarah called me into her office. I sat across from her as she slid a folder across the desk. Inside? A signed statement from Ricky. He was turning on Emily. According to Ricky's confession, the romantic relationship with Emily started before my arrest. They'd been secretly sleeping together while I worked night shifts. Ricky pitched the idea of planting drugs as a way to remove me from the picture. Emily knew about the bag. She knew exactly where it was hidden. She didn't physically place it, but she agreed to let it happen. I sat there reading those words, feeling numb. Even after everything I'd suspected, seeing it in black and white broke something inside me all over again. 2 people I trusted more than anyone, conspiring to destroy my life. This isn't just about Ricky anymore, Sarah said gently. The DA may bring charges against Emily too. I took a long breath, holding back the wave of anger trying to rise inside me. And my son? I finally asked. Where does this leave Tyler? That became the next battlefront. Because while the criminal charges were moving forward, I still hadn't seen my son. Not really. Emily had kept him shielded from everything. Her calls lately weren't about guilt. They were about control. She was trying to protect herself from legal consequences, but also from losing Tyler. A week after Ricky's full statement was filed, Emily finally cracked. She showed up at Mike's house again, this time crying harder than before, full on panic mode. I'm going to lose everything, she sobbed. Please, don't take him away from me. I stood there stone-faced. I wasn't about to comfort her. Not now. Not after everything. You made your choices, Emily, I said coldly. I didn't know it would go this far. She cried. No, I said sharply. You just didn't care. Not when you let my son call another man dad. Not when you left me rotting in prison. She tried to pull the same manipulative card as before. I was scared. I was trapped. But the truth was simple. She wasn't trapped. She was greedy. She saw Ricky as a way out of our struggles. She saw a man who offered her attention, money, and, after I was arrested, a clean slate. And now, she saw her whole world crumbling under the weight of her own selfishness. I want my son, I said, and you better pray the court leaves you with supervised visitation after what you've done. Her face went pale. The next morning, Sarah filed for full custody on my behalf. The court hearings were brutal. Emily's attorney tried to paint her as a manipulated victim, the same tired defense Ricky had used. But with Ricky's sworn statement, the DA's charges, and 2 years of evidence stacked against her, the judge wasn't buying it. And when the family court judge asked me directly what I wanted, I kept it simple. I want my son to finally know who his real father is. And I want him safe. For the first time since my nightmare began, I saw a future. Not just revenge, not just justice, but rebuilding. And I wasn't stopping until every piece of my stolen life was mine again. By the time we reached the criminal trial, Ricky's plea deal had already locked in his fate. 10 years. No parole for the first 7. Multiple felony counts. He sat there in his orange jumpsuit during the final hearing, head down, face pale, like the weight of his own destruction finally caught up with him. For a moment, I thought he might try to apologize. He didn't. Cowards rarely do. Emily's situation played out differently. Since she wasn't the one who physically planted the drugs, her charges were focused on conspiracy and obstruction serious, but not on Ricky's level. Her lawyer begged for leniency, pushing the same narrative she had been crying about for months. She was manipulated. She feared for her safety. She made poor choices under duress. The DA didn't fight that part too hard. They had bigger fish to fry with the sheriff's department corruption cases still unfolding. So in the end, Emily took a deal too. 5 years probation, mandatory counseling, loss of primary custody, no prison time. Part of me wanted her locked up too. But another part, the father part, knew Tyler didn't need both his parents behind bars. At least now, she was out of the way. And supervised. The family court battle was the hardest part. Not legally. Legally, we won easily. But emotionally, it broke me. When I first walked into that courtroom and saw Tyler, my own son, sitting next to Emily, my chest tightened. He looked older, taller, his face more serious than a boy his age should ever have to be. And the worst part? He didn't recognize me. The judge granted me full custody. Emily would get limited, supervised visits heavily monitored. After court, I approached Tyler carefully. "Hey, buddy," I said softly. "Do you remember me?" He stared at me for a long time. His eyes darted to Emily, who was already being pulled away by her attorney. I don't know," he whispered. My throat burned. "That's okay," I said. "We'll get to know each other again. We've got time." The first few weeks after Tyler came to live with me were awkward. He was shy, hesitant. The lies Ricky and Emily fed him had shaped his little mind for years. He had questions, hard questions. Why did you leave? Why did Uncle Ricky live with us? Why did Mommy say you were bad? I answered them as gently and honestly as I could. I didn't trash his mother, tempting as it was. I just told him the truth. Sometimes grown-ups make really bad choices. Sometimes they hurt people they love. But I never stopped loving you, not for 1 second. Slowly, Tyler opened up. We started simple, trips to the park, building Lego sets, reading books before bed. Every little moment felt like reclaiming stolen time. Mike, my cousin who stood by me since the start, became like a second father figure for Tyler. He taught him how to throw a football, how to fix a bike chain, how to grill hot dogs in the backyard. Every time I watched them, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Meanwhile, my civil case against the Dallas County Sheriff's Office finally hit settlement talks. They knew they were screwed. Jason's testimony, the corrupt search warrant, the wrongful conviction, the media attention. They threw out a number I never thought I'd hear. 7 figures. Sarah looked at me across her desk and said, "You've earned every damn penny of it." And I wasn't just thinking about myself. I set up a trust for Tyler's college fund. I paid off every cent Mike ever spent helping me survive. I donated a chunk to organizations that helped the wrongfully convicted, people like me who had no one to fight for them. As for Ricky, last I heard, he was struggling behind bars, exactly where he belongs. And Emily? She moved out of state after the custody ruling. She still sees Tyler during her scheduled visits, but under strict supervision. I don't think she'll ever fully face what she did. Some people never do. But me? I finally had my life back. Not the old one. Not the one they stole. A new life. One I rebuilt with my own 2 hands. You know what nobody tells you when you survive something like this? It never really leaves you. The prison cell, the betrayals, the courtroom lies, the moment your own child looks at you like a stranger, that all stays. Like a scar under your skin. You learn to live with it, but you feel it every day. There are still nights I wake up in cold sweats, my heart racing, convinced for a split second that I'm back in that tiny jail cell, the walls closing in, waiting for a guard to bark orders. It takes a few breaths, a glance around my bedroom, and the soft snoring of Tyler down the hall to remind myself, I'm free. But freedom looks different now. It isn't about revenge. It isn't even about justice anymore. It's about rebuilding something honest, something real, from the wreckage they left behind. The hardest part wasn't what Ricky did. Not even what Emily did. It was the years I'll never get back. The birthdays I missed. The school plays I wasn't there for. The scraped knees I couldn't bandage. The bedtime stories I never read. But here's the thing I've finally learned, the most important thing of all, you cannot let anger build your future. You can't parent from rage. You can't rebuild a life by obsessing over everything you lost. That road leads right back into darkness. So instead, I build forward. Every morning, Tyler and I eat breakfast together at the kitchen table. We talk about school, about baseball, about whatever silly cartoon he's obsessed with that week. He doesn't call me sir anymore. He calls me dad. And every single time he says it, I feel like I'm breathing for the first time. Mike's still here too. He became family in the truest sense of the word. The uncle Tyler deserves. The brother I never knew I needed. The one who never gave up on me when everyone else did. And the settlement money? It'll never give me back those stolen years, nothing can. But it gave me something better than bitterness, security. Tyler will go to college without debt. We bought a little place near the edge of Dallas, away from the neighborhood that holds too many ghosts. A fresh start, but not an escape. Because I'm done running. I don't know what became of Emily after she left the state. We keep things civil for Tyler's sake during the supervised visits, but there's no relationship beyond that. No friendship. No forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. As for Ricky, he'll die in prison, most likely. And I won't lose a minute of sleep over it. What still hits me sometimes, though, is how close I came to being another statistic. If Jason hadn't spoken up, if Mike hadn't stood by me, if Sarah hadn't fought like hell, I'd still be sitting in that cage. So now, every time I walk Tyler to the bus stop, or sit at his little league games, or help him with math homework, I remind myself, this life is not something I take for granted. I lost everything. But in a twisted, brutal way, I got something back that's worth more. Clarity, gratitude, real family, and peace. Because sometimes, surviving isn't about getting everything you deserve. Sometimes, surviving is simply refusing to let them break you. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs to hear it too.